Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that knows that each of the last two times a new pope was selected, the Seahawks went on to play in the Super Bowl the very next season. I'm Dallas. That's Drew. And that's Matt. And that is just, it's not funny. It's just true. All right. And it's going to happen again this year. So mark your calendars. Seahawks fans, book your tickets because it's happening. This is the Dingers and Stingers show. We're back for another great episode. Later on in the show, we are going to talk about the George Pickens trade to the Cowboys. We're going to talk about our thoughts about that. We're going to talk about, we have a very fun, game to play where we're going to start building a football movie. We're going to get some casts in there. We're going to tell you what it's going to be about. We've all come up with ideas. And a little before that, we're going to talk about, some MLB action here. Mariners. We're going to talk different players and how they performed so far this year. But first, to begin the show, we must begin with our warm-ups, as always. And our warm-up for today is this story, which I thought was interesting. Abdul Carter, top Giants draft pick from this year, he is trying to decide on which number he wants to wear, and he's having a little bit of trouble. Here's why. He asked first to wear Lawrence Taylor's number 56, which is retired by the Giants. That was a swift decline. I guess he is sort of the mindset, the worst they can say is no, and they said no for sure. He then tried to ask for number 11, which is worn by Phil Simms, Giants quarterback who won a Super Bowl. That request was declined as well. So that brings to mind a question. How do you guys feel about rookies asking to wear the numbers of legends? So I want to ask that question first, and I'll ask a different question about retired jerseys in a second. But first, I want to ask, how do you guys feel about rookies asking to wear those legendary numbers?
Yeah, my initial reaction was actually is very similar to what Lawrence Taylor told Abdul Carter, which was like, go make a legacy of your own. Like, and I understand there's only, so many numbers that can actually be worn. But at the same time, it's like when there's already, especially like when you're talking about guys who would be considered like a franchise Mount Rushmore type of player, like, do you really just want your whole career to start in their shadow? Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, this is just a guy who was really good. And it's not like Lawrence Taylor's the best defender of all time. Most would argue, I think. And your thought was, you know what? I should have the same number. Like, to me, it's kind of just like, I don't know, man, pick a new number. Like, you're an edge rusher. You have such, like, variety of numbers you can choose from. I mean, I guess that's getting too niche from the question, but, like, yeah, I don't know. I think when it's available, and unless you're being forced to pick a number that's, like, 37, like, some just, like, dumb number, like, there's other cool numbers you can wear, dude. Wear one of them. Make your own name. Like, I don't know. Especially when it's been, like, retired for so long.
Yeah, I have kind of two reactions to it. One is that it's just kind of funny. Like, it's no big deal to me. Like you said, Dallas, like, the worst they can say is no. And, like, whatever. I also think it kind of just demonstrates how, like, we as fans, like football fans, care and know and, like, are interested in this stuff so much more than I think the people who are really, really good at playing it. Like, I'm guessing Abdul Carter, just by virtue of playing high school and then college football, has gotten some education on, like, football history. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he was not a guy who's, like, knew much about Lawrence Taylor. You know what I mean? Like, you've heard the name, whatever, but are you watching 1980s game tape that often? Like, I think I've seen, like, interviews and, like, little trivia games that current players do for any sport, really. And it's, like, pretty rare that they're an actual, like, history buff of their sport. That's not really an excuse because, like, Lawrence Taylor, like you said, Matt, arguably the greatest defender of all time. Like, Mount Rushmore of the Giants, certainly, but maybe even, like, NFL Mount Rushmore you could be talking. But the other thing is, like, Phil Simms, like, he's not in the same class. Like, what are we talking about? Like, he did win a Super Bowl, but so did Jeff Hostetler for the Giants. So, like, it's not the end all be all of, like, It is like when the team wins, that's great. That is the end all be all. But like in terms of you have cemented your legacy as one of our all-time franchise players, I don't know. Like Phil Simms was decent. He's not in the Hall of Fame to my knowledge. So I think that like why are we denying him Phil Simms number? Like I don't know. But there are a lot of numbers to choose from, and find your bliss.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. Like, there's a certain like threshold that once you've crossed it, it's like, yeah, I don't think Phil Simms' number is like some like holy grail, but it's also like there's dudes who are like you said, and like we kind of talk about like you talk about like the Mount Rushmore of even potentially the sport. Those are the type of jerseys. I mean, I could argue that there's jerseys like that that could be retired for like the league, let alone a team. Just because you're talking about guys who were so impactful at what they were and kind of defined generations. Like, I'm not advocating because football needs 1,000 jerseys to fill out their team, but what I would not be shocked if there was one day an argument that 12 should be retired. Like, it is just one of those things where I'm like, maybe I don't know, but Phil Simms like 11, I don't know. Like, you're not, like you said, he's not a Hall of Famer. Yeah, this feels kind of weird.
It happens in baseball too. Mike Trout famously, it wears 27. The Angels' only Hall of Famer, Vlad Guerrero Jr., also wore 27, and that jersey will not get to be retired for a very long time. Yeah, Vlad Guerrero Sr., Vlad Guerrero Jr. Not going to be a Angel anytime soon.
Also, number 27 though, and just need to point out that's what Drew Knight wears for his adult league baseball team. So
that's true.
There's a trend.
Yes, these are great players. These are all great players. And so yeah, it happens there too. Now, like it's kind of very weird that that jersey won't be retired and will be like retired for two guys at some point. Yeah, doubled up there. But yes,
Ichiro and Randy Johnson wore the same number for the Mariners, and so Randy went into the Hall of Fame as a Diamondback. So I don't think they ever retired it in Seattle for him. But I don't know. Yeah, that's like two Mount Rushmore guys of that franchise for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So that leads me to my next question, which is where we'll finish this talk here. If you had it your way, what non-retired Broncos, Rams, Red Sox, Padres number would never be worn again for your guys' team? So, what numbers would you pick? If you have any.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because I nerd out about jersey numbers a little bit. And so I was looking into this, and we'll start with the Broncos. Like Matt said, you need a bunch of numbers in football. The rosters are much bigger than other sports. It's just the way it goes. So the Broncos have only ever officially retired 3 numbers. One, number 7 for John Elway, of course. Number 44, which was Floyd Little, who was like our first great running back. So I think that is fitting. And then number 18 was retired for, I believe he was like our first quarterback ever. Frank Tripucka is his name. And then Peyton Manning didn't even ask when he signed. He was going to wear a different number. And then like the family of Frank Tripucka reached out and was like, take it. You can wear number 18. So it's funny if you, at the Broncos stadium, it's like 18 Tripucka. And then there's like a little footnote, like also Peyton Manning, like, which is fair. But also, they have not retired numbers, but they don't give them out anymore. So there's 3 numbers that are not officially retired, but are not in use. And that's 24 for Champ Bailey, 58 for Von Miller, who's still active, and then 88, which was Demaryius Thomas, who was a great receiver for us, but then also tragically passed away a year or 2 ago. I could make an argument any one of those 3 should and probably will be retired at some point, especially Von Miller, I would say, winning Super Bowl 50. He's our franchise's greatest defender, in my opinion. But then there's a few guys who are in the Hall of Fame who their numbers are still in use a lot. That's number 30, Terrell Davis, number 27, Steve Atwater, and number 53, Randy Gradishar. I think all three of those have definitely a case to be retired, but as Matt said, it's a hard thing to do in football. You have other honors that they give, like the Ring of Honor and things like that. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I would say Terrell Davis, being an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, a Hall of Fame running back. I think number 30 is a good one to take out of commission.
Yeah, for me, and I mean, we talked about this briefly right before we came on the pod, but like, for me, when it comes to football, like, I didn't grow up a baseball fan or a basketball fan. Those were kind of like acquired tastes for me. And they're much more happy to give out numbers, like, or to retire numbers, I should say. And I think it's because of the fact that they don't have to fill out, 60 players in a given season. But so when I think about numbers that should be retired, in my opinion, it's always been a thing of like, you need to be, we've said it, a couple times already, you need to be a Mount Rushmore figure of your team. I think those are the only people that arguably should have their number retired, or you need to be someone who's made such an insane impact just on the league or on, I think the perfect example is, Jackie Robinson for baseball. That is the perfect example of like, your number's just retired. You had such an impact. It didn't matter what team he was playing for. It's the impact he had on the league. And so, I the only guy I think for the Rams that I can really think of, because the Padres, not like a ton of like super fantastic players who aren't still active have played for the Padres, or at least have played the majority of their career for the Padres. But like for the Rams, I think the only guy I can even think of is Aaron Donald. I mean, if he's also on that like defensive player Mount Rushmore for the league, in terms of just pure dominance. So I could see the Rams retiring 99, and I think that would be well deserved. Problem is, it's just such a popular number, man. Like any big boy nose tackle is going to want to play at 99.
Do you know how many Rams numbers are already retired?
No, but I can check the exact number for you.
I assume Deacon Jones. I don't know though, like Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner.
So we have 8 jerseys. Yeah, we have 8 jerseys retired. We have number 7, who's Bob Waterfield, way back in the day. Marshall Faulk, Eric Dickerson, Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, Jackie Slater, Isaac Bruce, and Jack Youngblood. Every single one of those guys, Rams legends, like defined certain eras. And I mean, obviously some of them, people say, Deacon Jones played and Merlin Olsen played before the invention of the sack, but the term sack was actually invented by Deacon Jones. And, we can't go back and kind of retcon it, I'm sure, because not a lot of the games were filmed back then, but people say he might actually be the all-time sack leader by like a good margin. That guy was insane.
And he had a cameo in an episode of the Brady Bunch. So,
which is huge for you.
Shoots him way up Drew's list. Yeah.
Way up Drew's list on that.
Well, it's interesting. I want to talk about you mentioning like, well, there should be criteria, right? Like inner circle, whatever, of the sport. You kind of mentioned Mount Rushmore for your team. I get the idea behind that, but if you go a certain amount of time, what are you going to bump someone off the retired list? If someone new is better. So I like the idea of just honoring the best of the best throughout the eras. And like the Red Sox have an actual criteria. You have to be in the Hall of Fame to get your number retired by the Red Sox. I don't think that's necessarily a great rule to be hard and fast about, but they did make a couple exceptions. Johnny Pesky is not in the Hall of Fame. His number's retired because he just meant so much to the Red Sox and the city and blah, blah, blah. And then David Ortiz, he is now in the Hall of Fame, but they retired his jersey like the minute he stepped off the field. Like they did not wait around at all. And I think that was the right call because, I mean, he was a huge, huge part, maybe bigger than anyone in breaking the curse, and he won 2 more World Series after that. So I think the Red Sox have a good list. The Yankees go crazy and retire. Like it's sad for the new guys who come up and they have to wear like number 74 or something. Um, but the Red Sox also do that thing that I mentioned the Broncos do, where they keep numbers out of commission even though they're not retired. And so they've done that with 15, which was Pedroia's number. I don't think Dustin Pedroia is going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but he's a perfect candidate to get his number retired by the Red Sox. He was part of 3 World Series teams. He won an MVP, won a Rookie of the Year, he won 4 Gold Gloves, like very meaningful player to that era. Roger Clemens, number 21, is out of commission. He will not be in the Hall of Fame ever because of steroid stuff, but again, like a huge, he's one of the best pitchers of all time, won an MVP with the Red Sox, all that jazz. And then number 24 is not in commission either. That was Dwight Evans' number. It was also Manny Ramirez's number. So a couple of guys who are, borderline Hall of Famers who won't get in for various reasons. I think they just need to kind of be firm one way or another, either let people wear these numbers or retire them for good. I don't like the in-between thing because it doesn't make any sense to me. And there's a couple legendary guys that they didn't do that for. Like when Xander Bogaerts signed with the Padres, they immediately gave out number 2 again. They didn't wait at all. Same with Nomar. When Nomar was traded, number 5 has been in use by a bunch of different random guys. So, like, I don't know. Like, it just, I'd like to know what goes into the decision more, but I would say start by retiring those ones that are in the weird gray area.
Yeah, I think that plays for other sports, but again, it just like the tough part of football is, and granted, you only carry 53 into regular season, but you also have to include your practice squad. Like, if you start getting there's a certain point, like, you're right, like, yeah, you can't just like bump someone off the like Mount Rushmore, but at the same time, like, you gotta be careful with how many numbers you're retiring, because like,
no, for football, 100%. I 100% agree. Like, keep it tight. I mean, the Rams have 8. That's like more than probably most teams.
That's a good amount.
But I think it would be crazy not to add Aaron Donald to that list.
Yeah, and that's the problem is there's guys who I genuinely am like, I could see like some of these guys being deserving, but I just don't think because of the nature of the sport and how big the teams are, it ever happening, because you either have to have a hard cap, which means, when you're considering not just the present and past, but like potentially the future, like you don't want to end up using one of, let's say teams at most can retire like 20 numbers. I don't know the number, but it's like, you don't want to use one of those 20 on a guy who ends up, no offense, like Phil Simms, where it's like, dude's not even a Hall of Famer. Is he really worth retiring a whole number? Probably not, right?
Did they retire his number, or did they just not let him have it?
Well, so I'm reading right here. The Giants are tied for the most retired numbers in the NFL. They have 14 numbers retired.
Yeah, see, I agree with you. And I think what they'll have to do eventually, I mean, assuming football goes on long enough, what they'll have to do eventually is start unretiring some. And you can still have a little note like, Phil Simms wore number 11. He won the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. But then now there's some rookie out there wearing number 11 because you just simply need the jersey.
Gotta have it. Yeah, gotta have it. Well, look, we wish Abdul Carter the best of luck picking a number. Hopefully he can arrive at one that he likes. And no doubt he'll make that number legendary, whatever number he picks. So moving on to our baseball segment here, we're going to start talking we're going to say some words about one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. And this was, not to get ahead of ourselves, this was predicted a little bit on our show last week. This trend for this team would continue. The Seattle Mariners, they have not lost a series since April 6th. That remains true as of today. They did not play today. They play, recording this on Thursday, the 8th of May. And so it's been over a month since the Seattle Mariners lost a series. And a lot of that is due to their offense finding their stride. They have found their rhythm in a big way. So we wanted to talk about that a little bit. What has gotten into the Seattle Mariners offense? What do we think? What stands out to you about the differences between last year and this year?
Well, I mean, besides the fact that they are simply doing better this year, the big difference is in coaching because
They got the new hitting coach, yeah.
yeah, so their offense was terrible last year. That's the reason they missed the playoffs. Their pitching was outstanding. Their offense was just absolutely dreadful. This year, they have largely the same group. There's not a ton of different guys in that lineup, and they are mashing the ball. And what they did it was actually at the end of last season, they fired their manager, Scott Service. They hired their former catcher, Dan Wilson, to take over. He had no managerial experience. They let him take the job, and he hired his old teammate and Hall of Fame designated hitter, Edgar Martinez, to be their hitting coach. And you talk to people around the game of baseball, he is what they call a professional hitter. Like he just knows what he's doing. He had to work very hard to be a good hitter, unlike, maybe some of the guys who it came easier to. Like there were stories of him in his later years, his later playing days, where he was losing his eyesight. And so he would do these special drills to improve his eyesight and like recognize pitches and stuff. So this guy knows how to hit. And I think, they're using his wisdom and turning things around. And, I'm not going to get into the specifics of players yet. We'll talk about them in a later segment, but it's just, I'm thrilled with it. I know if you go back to our season preview for the American League West, I was so low on the Mariners because I hated their offseason. And if you had told me that, Logan Gilbert will spend time on the IL and George Kirby will spend time on the IL and the Mariners will be in first place and their offense, I would have been like, no, that's not, I think that's worst case scenario for them. And yet here they are, 22-14 as of right now, have been beating everyone they play and come from behind victories and they look legit. So I'm happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't follow them a ton throughout this season so far, but I do glance at their box scores and whatnot. And yeah, it seemed like the biggest change, because we talked about it earlier in the offseason, was they didn't do anything different. So when you're talking about if it was one or two players who were having just like a resurgent year, sure, that happens. Players have turnarounds, players improve. But when you're talking about an entire team that made no substantial or notable changes to their lineup, going from one of the worst to arguably one of the best offenses in the league, the only change that happened was that hitting coach. So, I mean, really props to him. It seems like it's paying dividends so far, because, yeah, their pitching's been good, but it has not been what it was last year. And yet here they are winning. And, I hate to be the guy that says it, but I mean, they did this a little bit last year too, I believe, where they got a little bit of a lead in the division and then ended up kind of fumbling it down the stretch. But it feels different this time. It does. Like, this one feels more legit.
Last year they took a lead because the Astros had started off so poorly. Yeah. This year they're taking a lead because they're playing so well. Like the A's are playing very well. And they're 2 games out or 3 games out now. The Rangers have been disappointing. The Astros are pretty mid, but like the Mariners are just winning the games,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a good year to be, just good in the AL West, and that could win you the division by 10 games.
To win you the pennant, honestly, you could
in the AL. In general, like you could get all the way to the ALCS being good this year. And so, 100%. I think, worthy of mentioning, they were first in strikeouts last year, and now they are 18th in strikeouts as a team. So this is a team that figured something out. They turned something around in their approach to things at the plate, and they made it work. So shout out to the Mariners. We like the Mariners on this podcast. Even me, I mentioned it on past episodes. I know I'm supposed to not like them, but even me, I love the Mariners. So we like the Mariners here. So good for them. Okay, so let's get into the meat of our MLB segment. By the time this drops, most teams will have played 40 games in baseball, and that marks the end of the first quarter of the season. So 162 games, 40 games in, and I work in a corporate environment. These guys don't. But at the end of every quarter, we have a little performance review. We check in, and we see, who's doing well, who's not doing well. What can we do to improve? What can we continue to work on? Things like that. So we thought we'd do that for some players here on this show. So we're going to do a little quarter one performance review for some players. You all have prepared some players that you're going to talk about. A lot of teams are going to get some love or maybe some not love during this segment. So let's just get right into it. We'll start with Drew, who's taking the AL, and we'll start with the AL West, and we'll bounce back and forth. So we'll start with Drew in the AL West.
Yeah, and I think just what we just talked about, how great the Mariners have been. I want to give a couple A's out to a couple Mariners hitters, specifically Jorge Polanco and Cal Raleigh. Both of them get A's to this point in the season. Jorge Polanco has been outstanding. He has a 216 WRC plus, so that means he's 116% better than the average hitter. He's just been mashing the ball. He has 9 home runs already. He's batting .348 with a .396 on base, a .707 slug. So this guy who, had his worst season ever last year, signs back with Seattle. It's kind of like a head-scratching move at the time, but they look so smart now. He is putting in an all-time season so far. His strikeout rate is down 19% from last year, which is insane, like an insane drop. So good for him. And then Cal Raleigh's leading the league in home runs. He has 12. He was already the best hitting catcher by a lot of people's opinion. I think he's putting no doubt on that now. He already has 2 WAR on the season because he's also a great defender. He's just having a great year right after signing that extension. So good for Big Dumper. Couple A's for the Mariners. And then I'm going to hand out a couple F's to a couple Texas Rangers players. The Rangers are pretty mid so far. They did get their hitting coach, which they actually call an offensive coordinator.
Pretty fine.
Down there in Texas. They fired him this week. They hired Brett Boone, another teammate of those Mariners, to be the hitting coach. Maybe they're trying to, take a little bit of that magic. But a couple of F's to Jake Berger and Jock Peterson, who were 2 big additions the Rangers made this offseason, hoping to bolster that lineup a little bit. Berger has been so bad that he got sent down to the minors. And I'm looking at his page now. His birthday is 5 days from mine to the year. So he's probably got to be the closest in age any major leaguer is to me, I would imagine. Anyway, but he's been bad. He was only batting .190 with a .231 on base before he got sent down. Jock Peterson, we just played the Rangers, the Red Sox did, and he broke out a little bit. He had something like 5 hits over the 3-game series, but he's rocking a 25 WRC plus right now, which means he's 75% worse than league average. For a guy they signed to be their DH, so really all you do is hit, that is unacceptable. It's just been awful in every sense of the word so far this year. And so that's a big reason why the Rangers are below average when a lot of people expected them to be competing for that division.
Yep, 100%. And I like what Josh Young said about Brett Boone. He says something to the effect of his brother coaches the Yankees. And he has a podcast, so he probably knows ball. That's, I believe, something to the effect of that's what he said about the addition of Brett Boone, which, we love, some podcaster love all from MLB players.
Hey, and Brett Boone was a better player than Aaron. And, he's not as well remembered maybe because of the moments, but
right.
Brett Boone was good.
Right. So, all right. So there you go. There's the AL West. We'll go to the NL West now, and we'll go to Matt.
Yeah. So in the NL West, I wanted to go with something that was going to be like Drew did, where there's like the positive surprise and the negative surprise. But the thing is I couldn't quite find exactly what would be, because I think the biggest surprise in the NL West would probably be the Giants and just the success they've had. But I couldn't quite pinpoint an exact reason why. They've just kind of been winning games. And so, unfortunately, this is going to get a little negative here, but there's a lot of really disappointing things in the NL West, despite, these lofty numbers that the top heavy teams have put up. So, first off, I want to start with the Rockies. I'm an ex-Rockies fan, for those of you who are unaware. I did root for them back in the day. That ended in about 2018, I believe, 2019. But this year, they're literally on pace to be the worst team ever, which is insane, because last year we watched a team be the worst team ever. And it had been so long since that record had been broken. And now we're looking at going back to back. I was looking at the stats this morning as I was kind of doing some research on this. And the Rockies right now are only 9 points WRC, got explained. They're only 9 points better than the worst offensive season of all time that happened in 1884. That's how close they are to being the worst offense in the history of ever. And it's such a crazy thing, because the one thing you could always rely on from the Rockies is they were going to lose a lot of games, but at least they would hit a lot of home runs. They play in Colorado. They're going to be able to get all this, big time shots and ball flies. And they are the second worst team offensively in MLB history. And so, I could give every single person on that team an F, essentially. I went through and looked at every single player. The average Rocky in the lineup right now is averaging over, I think it was 150 points less OPS. Just across the lineup, every player being bad. But I think the big one for me has got to be Ryan McMahon. He's supposed to kind of be a staple of this lineup. Brenton Doyle's fine. He's doing fine. He's probably the only guy on that lineup who's doing even remotely fine. Ryan McMahon is just absolutely having a shitter of a season. And he is so far below what his career averages are. And yes, I'm going to give him the F. I'm going to call out Ryan McMahon. You're kind of the veteran of this lineup at this point. You're supposed to kind of be the leader, and you're not pulling your weight. And the Rockies
point something out
are not pulling their weight.
About the Rockies. They've played 37 games. They are 19 games out of first place, which means they have lost ground in the standings on more than half of the days this season. It's almost unfathomable. The next closest last team out of first place in their division, well, the White Sox are also dreadful. They're 15, which is bad in itself, but then it's 10, So to be almost double what a regular last place team is behind. And granted, the Dodgers have the best record so far, but still, it's just terrible.
Yeah, and the thing is you look at some of the bad teams. And, obviously you can kind of lump in the White Sox. They were the worst team of all time by record last year. The Rockies are worse right now. And you see the Rockies have 6 wins as of today? They have 6 wins. And then you look at teams like the Marlins, who people were like, the Marlins may be the worst team in the league this year. I don't know. And
that's what I picked.
Yeah, and the Marlins have 14 wins? Yeah, so dude, they have more than double their wins. And yes, it's only the first quarter of the season. Yes, things have time to change. Yes, the Marlins might actually be sellers at the deadline, which means they could get worse. Ain't nobody taking anything for this Rockies team. Nobody wants it.
The
Like,
Pirates have been so bad they fired their manager already, and we'll talk about that in a second. And they have twice as many wins as the Rockies.
and that's what I'm talking about. It's just like I don't, and I used to be a good black defender, and then I started realizing it's like a toxic relationship there. Like I don't know what he's done to deserve the longevity and the loyalty and whatever. And I know it's always comes back to ownership, but like Colorado fans, like that's that's gotta be heartbreaking, man. Like
they have the Nuggets and the Broncos, but yeah.
Hey, I mean, and you know what? Good franchises. So
and the
it's like,
Avalanche too are good.
yeah, I guess maybe there's got to be one burnt pancake, but like, truly, just I don't think there's a more embarrassing team than the Rockies because they have the opportunity to be one of the best, coolest teams, and absolutely just said, nah, we're good. Like, and now they suck. Like, historically suck. It's not even just like, oh, they're bad this year. Right now, they are the second worst team ever in the history of this. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. They're on pace to lose the most games, and they're on pace to be the second worst offense ever. Just it's mind-boggling. The 1880s, dude. 1884 Milwaukee Brewers hold that record. I don't know about you, but 1884 is like really far away.
Yeah, I'm in the same year as you, so yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Rant over. Secondary rant. I think the other thing, at least for me, I thought that the Diamondbacks were going to be better than they are. I'll just come out and say that. They've been pretty just like middling. They've been good. They've been, pesky. They've been flashy at times. But there are some like staple guys on this team who I would have talked about as being, I believe one of these was my X factor for them in our previous episodes. And he has since been sent down to the minors. And that's Jake McCarthy. I thought that he was going to be kind of a staple at the top of this lineup. I thought he potentially could be the leadoff guy. I mean, the potential all seems there. And then I looked it up and he was batting like 068 on the season. And so, he got sent down to AAA. And it is what it is. Like you have to perform when you're at the highest level. But then also guys like Zach Gallen. Last year people kind of thought Zach Gallen had just a blip of a year. It happens. Every pitcher gets a year. But this year, his number one pitch is going on 2 years running of it's just being graded out as worse than it was the year before. And if you don't have that number one pitch, it's hard to set up the rest of your arsenal. And so for Zach Gallen, his numbers look bad again. And it's looking more to be trend than whoopsies. And, that he's arguably, obviously they got Corbin Burns, but that was supposed to be their ace. So
Burns has been bad too, and now he's hurt.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things. I'm giving Zach Gallen, McCarthy, I'm giving them both Fs, and I think, those are just the things that really stood out to me about the NL West. It was just shocking. Not what I ever could have imagined for either team.
They're good.
Yeah. So, tough love for the NL West, but we're looking to get that improved here in the next quarter. So we'll set some goals here. But all right, let's go to the Central of the AL and back to Drew.
Yeah, in the AL Central, definitely the most encouraging team, the most overachieving team. The team getting an A right now is the Detroit Tigers. They have currently the best record in the American League. They've been on a tear. Red Sox will face them this week. A little nervous about that. But the couple guys getting A's from that team, Spencer Torkelson, we talked about him a lot last week. He has looked great so far. Maybe a breakout finally that we've been waiting for. So he gets an A from me, and then I'm going to give an A to Tarek Skubal. I haven't heard as much about him this year as I was hearing last year at this time. But I looked up his numbers, and he is on just as good of a pace as he was last year. So, and he won the Cy Young handedly. So Yeah, a couple A's there. There's other guys in the Tigers who are doing great too, but I wanted to shout out those two guys. But the most disappointing team in this division is not the White Sox, because I think we all expected the White Sox to be bad. It's the Minnesota Twins, who Matt and I both chose as our division winners in the preview, banking on health, of course. But Carlos Correa, he's going to get an F from me. He has been on the field. He has been healthy. He's been playing. And he is just not hit at all. He's still a good defender at shortstop, but it's not making up the gap that his offense is leaving. Right now, he has a 262 on base, a 331 slug, and that's just not going to cut it for, the guy you signed to be a middle of the order bat for you. So, again, with baseball, it's a team sport. There's a whole team of reasons why you could be good or bad, but I'm going to highlight Correa because you expect more from a guy like that.
All right. So there you have the AL Central. Now let's go to the Central, the NL. Back to Matt.
Yeah. So for me, the the NL Central, the Central divisions are so whack, man. I mean, we discussed this, but they're just so whack. For me, you kind of brought it up, but Pittsburgh, it just is failing pretty much every which way you look. They just fired their manager. They had the whole controversy with the Roberto Clemente, thing where they took down his tribute, and also the performance on the field has not been good. Even, I said Paul Skeens looked like he might be a Cy Young guy. He was my prediction. And even he hasn't looked quite like he did last year, which maybe was to be expected, but also, I mean, he was kind of the only bright spot on this team. And, I think this might be a little bit dated, the article I pulled up. It absolutely was. This was like 2 weeks old, but 2 weeks ago, as a team, they were batting 184. That has since improved. I believe they're up to like 210 now or something like that. But that is a bad mark to be sitting at. Anywhere hovering around that 200 mark as a team is really pretty bad. Side crash out tangent, and they've won 2 times as many games as the Rockies batting that. But it's just like the Rockies. Every player on this team is down so bad from what their career averages are in terms of OPS, in terms of average, in terms of slugging, in terms of just anything really. There's only 1 or 2 guys who are actually up. Yeah, Tommy Pham, I know he's old. He's down like 300 points in OPS. That is a significant amount of points. And so I'm giving their whole lineup an F as well. I think they're just bad. I wasn't sure which of these guys to even pick out. I mean, I feel like O'Neal Cruz could be picked out. He's supposed to be a superstar, and he's just been really. And on defense, he's been terrible. So yeah, I'm going to give them an F. But bright spot of the Central, I'm going to go up to Chicago. Kyle Tucker, man, nailed that. They nailed it. Acquiring Kyle Tucker was absolutely the move. He has made such a difference on this team. And obviously, they've had other guys step up and play well. I mean, PCA is kind of breaking out right now, too. But Kyle Tucker's been as advertised, and I think it shows. I mean, they are clearly the best team in that division by, I'd say, a good margin.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kyle Tucker, acquisition by the Cubs, game changer for them. Yeah. I mean, they are going to be very good this year, and that's a big part of the reason why. All right, so only one division left each. So let's go back to the AL and go to the East, and Drew will take us through that.
Yeah, the AL East is another one we've talked about a lot in this podcast, but some weirdness. I think everyone around baseball expected the Baltimore Orioles to be pretty good. Even if they didn't do enough this offseason, they still had that young core. They were expected to be right in the playoff hunt. Right now, they are 13-23, and they just look really, really bad. And there are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of guys underperforming in general. But I want to highlight arguably their worst player, and that's Charlie Morton, who they brought in on a free agent contract this offseason. And at the time, people were saying, that's going to be your pitching addition? Like, 41-year-old Charlie Morton, who's been solid but not great for a long time. Well, age might have finally caught up with him because he is right now pitching to a 9.38 ERA. I don't really care about pitching wins and losses, but it is crazy to see this early in the season. He is 0-7 as a pitcher. He is just not being able to get anyone out. He's giving up way more home runs than he ever has. They moved him to the bullpen, but then I think maybe he got moved back or something because I don't know. They've had some roster situations. But anyway, he's just been terrible. Kind of a good example of just why everything is going so bad in Baltimore. But a couple of free agent signings that have done really well. For the Yankees, Max Fried, their big offseason acquisition after missing out on Juan Soto. And then he had to step up to be the number one when Garrett Cole went down. He has done exactly what they could have wanted and then some. He's pitching to a 1.05 ERA right now. He's never been the biggest strikeout guy, so, strikeout numbers don't jump off the page, but he has prevented runs at an elite rate so far, and he is, on the flip side, he is 6-0 to start this young season. So, and then the Red Sox, I'll talk about them more in Fan Corner, but Alex Bregman has been their best player, especially on offense. He was known kind of as a slow starter from his Houston days, but that has not been the case this year. He already has 9 home runs. He's batting .327, getting on base .401, slugging .612, which means he has an OPS over 1,000. He's been exactly what the Red Sox wanted, which makes it all the more frustrating that they are still just kind of mid. But, and of course I have to shout out Aaron Judge. He is the best player in baseball right now. He's doing great. Obviously he gets an A+, but, you hear enough about him. So I wanted to highlight a couple of other A's in that division.
Nice. All right, let's finish up performance reviews with the NL East. Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll start off with my bad one. It's pretty much directly tied to the Braves season and kind of how it's began. Michael Harris was kind of a rising young star for them. He has been really good in his career, short, but, young career. And this year, it's just, he cannot get it going offensively. I think he's batting like .215 right now. He used to be a guy who would be hitting in the top 3, top 4 spots of the lineup. And yeah, I'm going to give him an F. I mean, straight up, not much else to say about it. He has been struggling when some of the other guys on this team have been picking it up as of late. He really hasn't. So giving him an F. The thing I was shocked by, and I had heard they were doing well, but when I actually went and researched it, dude, the Mets they're playing ball right now. And for, obviously Juan Soto's been really good, and Pete Alonso's been really good. But that's not even, I don't think, the driving reason of why they've been so good. It's their pitching staff. And it's a bunch of pitchers who I genuinely assumed were washed, cooked, no good, shouldn't be playing. Why? Dude, it's crazy. And the one that really shocked me was Griffin Canning, a guy who wasn't good enough for the Angels.
I used to call him Griffin Canting.
It's too good. But yeah, he has a .250 ERA right now. He is absolutely shoving this season, and I didn't even know if he would make the roster. I thought it was kind of one of those just lottery ticket signings in an off season. I didn't think that they're going to be relying on him. And yet here he is. He has a career ERA of 4.63. So for him to be playing at basically half his career average, dude's playing ball. And nothing but respect for it. They've got a couple of guys who are playing like that. I think Trevor, is it Miguel or Miguel? Something like that. Yeah. He's also been playing.
They're brothers. So there's one on the Brewers too. And then, yeah.
I think that Tyler's on the Mets, but he's been playing really well. His ERA is also almost half of what his career was, but I just wanted to get in a little jab at the Angels because, Griffin Canning, once upon a time, was an Angel.
You hear
He was
you hear a lot about. Yeah, he was also. Yeah, go ahead.
He was also briefly a Brave this offseason. He was in the Soler trade, and the Braves decided,
They didn't want him. I'll say this about Griffin Canning. You hear a lot about teams having pitchers parks and hitters parks. The Angels don't have pitchers coaching staff. Like that's what the Angels don't have. Like they
Rumor
don't
has
have
it not batting coaching either.
they don't have pitching friendly coaching. That's their main problem with their rotation.
There's certain teams where if you go to that team, you're like, oh, I expect this pitcher will all of a sudden be better than usual. The Angels are the opposite.
The opposite of that.
Like
100%.
It's like, oh, Kikuchi going to the Angels? I don't know.
Sounds bad. All right. Well, there you have it. Those are our quarter one performance reviews across the MLB. So let's work on improving. Let's or if you're doing well, let's stay the course. And we'll hopefully see some improvement there. But let's move on to one of our favorite segments, Fan Corner. It is time once again. So let's start with the Padres. So Matt, what's going on with the Padres?
Yeah, so I mean, we just lost 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, and if you look at the box score, one of them looked like it was really out of hand. But if you watched, I mean, it was all basically one inning. It was Wandy Peralta having the worst inning of his career, mixed with Adrian Morejon also having the worst inning, tied for the worst inning of his career. So when you have 2 dudes come in and have the worst of their entire career innings in one inning, it's going to be a lopsided game. But that was also in, I think, the 8th or 9th inning. I think it was the 8th. In a game where we were leading by 1 going into that inning. So, we played them well. It's a bummer to come out of that without those extra wins, because in this division, I mean, we're going to need every win we can get. So letting them slip like that is still a bummer. But despite that, dude, I mean, we gave up 10 runs in a single inning from our bullpen. And our bullpen is still first in ERA, still first in WHIP, still first in pretty much every category that matters right now. So I mean, vibes are still high. We're getting healthy. Merrill came back and was absolutely balling. I mean, he came out and just started ripping against the Yankees. Xander he's no longer just an automatic out. And that's really exciting because pretty much every time he's been up to bat, it felt like this season I was expecting just a ground out to shortstop. But he's been hitting as of late. Luis Ariz missed that time with his concussion, but he came back and his numbers aren't up like usual, but they showed a graphic during the game. Like the Padres play better, both offensively and just by winning, when Luis Ariz is on the field with them. So, I mean, I really believe he's kind of the glue for this whole team. The guys love him. I love him. So, yeah, dude, Padres, vibes are still high. Vibes are still high. I mean, we are sitting good. I think we're only like a game or half game out of first. So I'm cool with it. I'm good with this.
Yeah, Padres a big contributing factor to this, but once again, the NL West, like when they play each other, those games are like, I got
so
to
crucial.
Down, watch. I'm glued. Like I'm watching. These are going to be great, entertaining games. So yeah, Padres definitely a big contributor to that. So lots of action with Drew's team here. So let's go to the Red Sox. Lots happened since the last time we checked in.
Yeah. The vibes are not high in Red Sox Nation. It's funny. It's like every week, like Monday and Tuesday, all us fans are miserable. And we get around to Thursday, and it's like, oh, we won 2 games in a row. Like, should be feeling good. But this time I'm not fooled. Like this team, we've had the easiest strength of schedule so far of any team in baseball, and we are 1 game over 500. And that, to me, for a team that was, had hopes of competing for the division and all that, it's unacceptable. Now, they're still only 2 games out of first. If they figure it out, I trust they can beat good teams, even if they couldn't beat bad to mediocre teams so far. So I'm not like season's cooked or anything, but it just doesn't feel good. Like these are games you need to be winning. And if you told me, Bregman would be as good as he is, and Christian Campbell would be as good as he is, and Garrett Crochet has been as good as he is, and we'd still be just around 500, I'd be like, well, what is going on? Even Devers has been a great hitter. But the real low thing that's happened is Tristan Casas blew out his knee, terrible injury. He's out for the season, and they do not seem to have a backup plan. And it was always, like kind of an unspoken understanding that, if Tristan Casas gets hurt, what are we going to do? And it happened last year. He got hurt last year, missed a ton of time, and they didn't really have a clear backup plan, and they went kind of waiver wire hunting. They got Dom Smith, who actually filled in quite admirably. Dom Smith is like, I guess technically, like he's like in the minors somewhere where we could get him, whatever. There's not really a good backup plan here. And so we're rolling with Romy Gonzalez and Abraham Toro right now, who are... Romy Gonzalez is like a fine bench guy. Abraham Toro probably shouldn't be on a major league roster. No offense to him. And then there's all these people saying, well, Rafael Devers was our third baseman for a long time. We just switched him to DH. Why don't we try him out at first? Which is, there was discussion of that in the offseason before we had Bregman. Like it was a topic. And that was kind of my thought, was like, okay, just based on how the roster is, there are other guys who could step into the DH role. Specifically, if Masataka Yoshida can come back, that's what he's been his whole career, basically, at DH. You also have Roman Anthony, the top prospect in baseball, sitting there ready in AAA. There are solutions to this if Rafi Devers is willing to play first. And then it came out today after the game. We finally got his take on it. And he was like, no, I'm not going to play first. I can't believe they would even consider asking me this after they, like, he's like, they go back on their word. He like seemed upset about, and based on the quotes, I think the video made it seem like he was more just confused about it rather than upset. But this is a situation, and, I might go a little deeper here than I normally do on a fan corner, but this is a situation where both parties are wrong, I think. I think the Red Sox should have at least started trying him there during spring training. It was foolish that they didn't. It was foolish to pin him to DH and say, you will not play the field. Even if Alex Bregman wants a day off or needs a day off, you will not be in the field. I don't get that logic at all. These are, I get like wanting routine and everything, but like these are major league athletes. They're capable of doing things. Like I don't get just taking him out of that position altogether, even if I liked him at DH as his primary role. And then in the Red Sox defense, like they didn't go back on anything. Tristan Casas got hurt. They're asking you if you'd be interested to do something new because new stuff happened. And it would fit the team the best. Like right now, there's just not a cleaner way to fit it than if Devers could play first or was willing to try at least. And like I already went through those scenarios, but like it just I don't like the attitude of, well, they told me to do this and now I can't do that. It's hard. It's like, well, try. Like, I don't know. Kyle Schwarber did it for the 21 Red Sox. He was terrible out there, but it worked enough. Yeah. Like, it's first base. It's not the hardest position. Yeah. And as someone who could play the hot corner at third, I don't think he would have a super hard time, like, just catching the ball. So it makes me really frustrated. I wouldn't be shocked. Same thing when, like, the DH stuff was happening in spring training. I wouldn't be shocked if, like, we get a few weeks down the road and, oh, look, he's doing some warm-ups at first base. Oh, look, they're going to try him out in a game at first. Like, I'm not saying that conversation is dead, but it's just incredibly frustrating that, A, the Red Sox didn't plan for this, and B, that Rafael Devers is being stubborn about it. When, I talked about when the retired numbers thing, like a guy like Dustin Pedroia, he was fiery, he was passionate, he was, rah, 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 all that. But he was like, if they had a better second baseman and they wanted him to play shortstop or DH or whatever, he might not have been happy, but he would have done it. Like, I just, you want your star guys, your franchise guys to kind of have the attitude of whatever it takes to help the team. And I'm not saying Devers is 100% not that, but he just isn't showing it very much. And I just want to see more flexibility and more of that team spirit, for lack of a better term. Like, the team isn't doing very well. He had a quote of like, what's next? Someone gets hurt in the outfield and they want me to play there? And it's like, no, we have a plan there. Don't you know? Like, don't you know who's on this team? Like, there are options at other places. Who is supposed to play first base right now? I hope that it's kind of being overblown right now, and eventually he'll try it out. But just kind of a frustrating turn of events when the team isn't doing so hot anyway, and the schedule gets a little tougher coming up.
Yeah, I mean, and to bounce off of that, I think like that response of like, oh, do they want me to play the outfield? It's like, I mean, if they need you, yeah. Like,
right.
At a professional level, I mean, at any level of sports, it's like, yeah, if the team actually does need you to try it, yeah, then expectations can be low, but they need you to try. And I think that's the part, like, on your behalf, it's even frustrating because I'm like, it's one thing to have a player who's unhappy with decisions that are made. That happens in every organization across all sports. It happens. That's normal. That's standard. It's another to have someone who, it seems like every time something happens, ends up going to the media or being put into the media as like complaining about it. Like, at some point, you got to be able to reel that in and have it be just like in clubhouse, in-house. Like, there's no reason for that to be on national news. You know what I mean? Like,
to be fair, on that point, he like avoided the beat reporters for like 5 days or whatever, however long it had been since Casas got hurt. The Boston media is brutal, and they demand to know answers. And eventually he had to talk, and I commend him for being honest. Like, yeah, I don't like where I saw someone's quote was like, he has earned the right to feel this way, and he has earned the right to be wrong, which he is wrong. Like, so I don't know. I hope it gets fixed, but yeah, it's not helpful to the vibes when the vibes were already not great. I think like it's got to be soonish. Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer come up here. I saw someone like pitch Meyer coming up to play short and Trevor Story playing first because his range isn't as good as it used to be. I'm not opposed to even that. Like, I just want major league caliber players playing on the field, and that's the main frustration, is these guys who are like, they could improve this lineup tomorrow, and they're just sitting in AAA, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yep, it's time to warm up the paddles, the Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer paddles, and the Red Sox, like just for the energy they would bring, and so. All right, so last bit of fan corner here. Me and the Angels. I can see that Matt has questioned where the comments are in our shared Google Doc. I was serious. I'm just gonna keep saying they're still bad. Like, that's what it's gonna be. Like, they're still bad. Mike Trout's hurt. Last week we didn't really know what was going to happen because we didn't really know what was going on, but he went on the IL 10 like hours after we stopped recording. And it's a bone bruise, which is anywhere from a couple weeks to a few months. Don't know how serious it is because no one will say, of course, because they kind of really don't know until he starts trying to run again. But so still bad. Mike Trout's hurt, and Zach Noah might be their all-star, which is kind of cool. We'll see if he can keep playing really well. But the Angels get one, and so he could be the one, which is kind of cool. So I think that is pretty much all you need to know. They keep losing, and that is something that will continue to happen. So, all right, let's go to another segment we like, where you guys make some predictions for the next week. Let's get some predictions going. So, Drew, let's start with you.
Yeah, my prediction involves the Pittsburgh Pirates, who we briefly talked about. Fired their manager, Derek Shelton. one of the earlier in the season managerial firings that you'll see. And it's clear he's a scapegoat. It's not his fault that they spent no money. I don't even think it's the front office's fault. I think it's ownership's fault. So really, he's a scapegoat. It's not. So my prediction here is that it will have no impact. The Pirates are still going to be bad. They're not going to all of a sudden know how to be better baseball players because they got a new manager in there. That's not how it works when the team is broken from the top down. So, yeah, it's not really a super bold prediction necessarily, but I think it was reactionary. I don't know if Derek Shelton was like the world's best manager or anything, but I just don't think that he was the problem at all. So I don't think the Pirates see more success because of it.
All right. There was never a rule that they have to be bold. We can stack some in the win column. Let's take some W's where we can get them. And so, Matt, what's your prediction for this week?
Yeah, my prediction is in response to my prediction from last week. Last week I predicted that there was going to be the first notable trade of the season. That did not come to pass. But this week I am going to double down. This is the week that we see the first notable trade because there are teams that are really, really bad and they should get rid of their players to other teams.
Red Sox need a first baseman.
Yep.
Ryan McMahon is sitting there. Terrible.
And he's awful. And so
my prediction from last week was Mariners would take care of business against their division opponents. They won both series, went 4-2 overall. So
Sure did.
I don't remember it being like a contest or anything.
Yeah, it absolutely nailed that one. All right. So last thing we want to do, MLB related, is check in on our Homer draft. So we have some updates here on both the overall score and some, unfortunate things that have happened.
Hang on by thread.
So this is great. Matt is officially in the positive. His net score is 1 home run.
1.
And I'm 8 behind him at -7 home runs.
There's a chance if I was to bench my whole team for the rest of the season and hold out at 1, I could win this.
Yeah, there's a high chance I will end the season in the negative. But that being said, some little notes from this week. Like you already mentioned, Mike Trout is hurt. He is on Matt's team. That could be a setback. Another setback coming for Matt in terms of hitting home runs is Tyler Soderstrom. We talked about it a little bit last week, but it's confirmed this week. He is playing a lot of outfield and not a lot of first base. He hasn't homered in a while either. He didn't homer this last week, so that's a problem in itself. But if he doesn't play first base because they called up Nick Kurtz, need to be, you got to be careful.
Right.
His name, so he hasn't been playing a lot of first, but his pitching is keeping him right there. He has 3 of the top 4 pitching staff so far this season in terms of giving up home runs, and that is really the reason he's winning, because I have more home runs than Matt. I'm getting some good news because Ketel Marte, he is my second baseman, he is finally back. He hasn't hit any home runs yet, but he's playing.
He will.
Is the first requirement towards hitting home runs is playing in the games. But I'm getting killed by the Florida baseball teams because I have both their pitching staffs, and I knew the Marlins could be bad. I was banking on like Sandy being great, whatever. Marlins have been giving up a ton of home runs, and the Rays, who I thought, I guess I underestimated their park. I thought they had a good pitching staff, a good unit there. They have been giving up a ton of home runs. That's what's killing me, what's dragging my score down. But still, it's only an 8-point difference. There's a lot of season to go. We'll see if we have to adjust.
Might I pitch an idea here? What about like a mid-season draft for those of us whose teams no longer play the sport that I drafted them to play?
It is interesting. I would be,
to my
I would
knowledge,
be interested in.
Most of my players don't play the position I drafted.
Well, no, that's not entirely true. But Yeah, I'd be interested to do like some sort of like maybe not a full redraft, but like, okay, Mike Trout's hurt, so you get to pick an angel to
Oh
take
Christ!
his place, or like Tyler
Different cannon.
Soderstrom's not playing first base anymore, so you get like, you know, you could pick a different first base. I don't
I
know.
get Nick Kurtz.
I think it has to be for Dallas to decide because he's the neutral party. So, Dallas, that's your project. You have until the All-Star break to figure out if there's any.
Dallas, you have until the All-Star break to fix me.
We'll see if there's some. We'll see if there's some wiggle room. Yeah, we'll see how we're going by the All-Star break. But right now, yes, the score being -7-1 is hilarious. And so I think it's funny. So you never know.
As long as it stays close, I mean, why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like that. Someone's not running away with it, and the weather's only getting warmer, folks. The ball's only going to start flying harder. And so hopefully your guys' players will be on the benefit end of the warm weather. Okay. So let's move to the NFL. We have a little bit of news that came out this week from the NFL, a little bit of a trade that went down. The Steelers, who seem like they are lost in space, traded wide receiver George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys. The full trade terms, the Cowboys get George Pickens. They also get a 2027 sixth-round pick, and the Steelers get a 2026 third-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. So those are the terms of the trade. This was kind of a surprise in that I did not hear much rumbling about it, especially George Pickens specifically. I didn't really hear that he was looking for it until like I woke up whatever morning it happened, and I like checked my phone, and it was like the last 3 notifications were George Pickens maybe request a trade. They're working on a trade. They've traded him. Like, and so it was like overnight, all this stuff came out. So I wanted to ask, first question I wanted to ask about this is the Steelers, they seem to get the most out of their receivers that they let walk or they trade away. And so I wonder if you guys think this will continue with Pickens. Like, that, have we seen the best of him, or is that still to come with the Cowboys, do you think?
My prediction is absolutely we've seen the best of what George Pickens was going to be. I think, I mean, he obviously physically is a talented receiver, but I think this kind of goes back to just the state of the Steelers as a whole, which is Mike Tomlin will take every ounce of talent a player has and utilize it on that field. There's a reason he's never had a losing season, despite how terrible some of these teams have been. And if you go down the list, I mean, let me try and find the list. I saw a picture of it the other day. It's like, obviously every single player you have to take case by case, but like trading with the Steelers for one of their receivers has backfired on every single team that's done it. I mean, going all the way back to Antonio Brown, I mean, we saw Chase Claypool went for a second-round pick to Miami, barely could see the field. We saw Martavis Bryant get traded. We saw Antonio Brown get traded. I mean, there's just been such a list. It's crazy.
They let Juju go in free agency, right?
He was free agency, I believe.
Yeah, Mike Wallace once upon a time.
Mike Wallace back in the day. Yeah, it's just... It's genuinely crazy. Deontay Johnson, I mean, he left and had like a moment of success and then instantly was sent to the Shadow Realm. These receivers leave the Steelers and it just feels like they lose their damn minds. Like, legitimately, they lose their minds as soon as they leave Pittsburgh. And I don't know what that says about Pittsburgh. I don't know what that says about Mike Tomlin, aside from, hey, good on him for keeping him mostly in check. But yeah, I don't know. It's not a ton of draft capital give up is the like redeeming factor. Like, I would take a flyer on George Pickens in the third if I wasn't worried about like the locker room presence of it. But George Pickens, the player, is absolutely worth a third round pick. Like, that to me is not in question. So I don't know. I mean, when we were talking about it in our group with some of the Cowboys fans, the guy that I kept thinking of that they already had was Michael Gallup. Big bodied receiver is just going to play the outside. I don't think we're going to see George Pickens necessarily do all that much in Dallas, to be honest. But that's just me.
I I can't speak to how, like I don't know how successful we'll be next year. Obviously, I can't predict the future. But on the surface, I thought this was a good move for the Cowboys. I don't think George Pickens is like, all world outstanding or anything, but as a number 2 option behind CeeDee Lamb, I think he's perfectly serviceable. He's only going to be 24 this season. He's only played 3 years. He's had 3 really solid years without having really solid quarterback play. And I think that kind of speaks to something. Now, your point is well taken about the track record of Steelers receivers leaving the Steelers. I'm not saying, we're going to see George Pickens go, all pro or anything, but for a 3rd-round pick, essentially, a 3rd-round pick, and then you swap a future 6 for a 5th, like, that's, to me, it's football's the only sport where this is like, I guess somewhat in basketball, where it's like the draft picks are just, they're valued so much. And to me, like a 3rd-round pick, it's like, I'm okay giving that up. Like, if I'm the Cowboys, I mean, come back to me in 5 years, show me who that pick was, and maybe I'm wrong. But for the most part, it's like to get a proven entity, someone who can help your offense. I think Dak Prescott is a perfectly good quarterback, especially in the regular season. I think George Pickens should have a fine year. I don't know if the Steelers are going to super regret it because I don't know how good he would have been in whatever the Steelers offense ends up being. But if I'm the Cowboys, I'm happy with the move.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's like I said, I agree with you. Giving up a 3rd-round pick for George Pickens, the player, is absolutely worth a shot. Like, no question, he's worth a 3rd-round pick. For me, is George Pickens the person worth a 3rd? Because you're giving up the future draft capital, you're doing all this, and he was already kind of a menace on the Steelers. Do we think Brian Schottenheimer is going to be able to reel this guy in? Do we think Brian Schottenheimer is going to be able to control this guy? I don't have a lot of faith in Brian Schottenheimer in general, let alone to handle a dude with this kind of an ego. That's my biggest concern when it comes to this is I don't doubt the talent of these receivers that get traded from the Steelers. They've all been very talented. It's the fact that they literally they become these locker room cancers, honestly. And it's, like the Deontay Johnson thing, he proved when he was on the Panthers for half a season, he was still good. Like, he can still play. And then he gets traded because he's complaining. He goes to the Ravens and just continues to complain, argues with coaches, argues with everyone, telling people that he should be out there a little bit, and has no patience for the team. And then he gets cut. Then he goes to Houston. He does the same thing, and he gets cut. And so it's like all of a sudden the Steelers traded this receiver who just basically crashes out and then never plays again. And so, I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen to George Pickens, but there is a pattern. There's 4 in a row receivers who have done this.
Yeah, I guess the one redeeming thing that I have still is that he's young. He's younger than most of these guys they trade. And Chase Claypool was young, but I think Chase Claypool wasn't as good as George Pickens. So
and they got him cheaper than Chase Claypool.
I also don't have a ton of faith in the Cowboys in general. Schottenheimer, Jerry Jones, it's not an environment where I would just in a vacuum predict success for him, but I think I still do the deal, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Look, if there's one thing we can count on Brian Schottenheimer to do, it's bring the visor back to the sideline. We must have one visor head coach in the league at all times, or else society will collapse. So that we can count on it for. So there's our thoughts on George Pickens and the Cowboys' new home for him. They did not, I will remark, give up we are going to extend him trade capital, so he may not, be there for a long time. He may be when it's extension time for him in a year or so. We may see him play somewhere else. So it could be just a fun little blip for the Cowboys. But okay, so we want to get to the meat of our NFL segment now, which I was thinking about a couple weeks ago. I found out about this John Madden movie they're making, where Nick Cage is going to play John Madden, and it made me crazy.
Fever dream.
It made me crazy. And so I've been thinking about it a lot. And so I made me wonder, like, I want to know,
and John
you guys, yeah, John Mulaney's going to play the EA Sports CEO. So they'll have like a big part in it, I assume. And so, it's going to be fun. But I want to know if you guys were going to make a football movie. So you can make it about a player, about a front office personality, a group of players, a broadcaster. If all rules, it can be about anybody or anything that's happened in football. I want to know what your football movie would be about, who would be in it. I'd like to know. So let's go ahead and give me your ideas for a football movie that you would make, and then what's it about and who's in it. I want to talk about this a little bit. Whoever can start.
If you want to start, Drew, go for it. But I will say, when you shot this idea out to us, my mind went crazy, dude. I had 1,000 ideas, and 999 of them not good. But it was honestly, I had such a fun time, like thinking about different like stories and events and things that have happened. Not just in football. I mean, most of the ones I wrote down are jokes and like things about football, but like in sports as a whole, like there's so many cool moments that I think would make for awesome either, docu-series or movie biopics, etc. I don't know. Drew, do you want to go through yours? Because I truly kind of shotgun sprayed a bunch of ideas out here. I do not need to go through all of them, so maybe let's hear yours first and I can dial in.
Okay, yeah, I can go first. I thought about this, like what are sports stories or football stories that we maybe know but not a ton about, and what would make for an entertaining movie. So my first idea that I did not go with, but I want to give honorable mention to, would be like there was that show Winning Time that came out on HBO that was about the 1980s Showtime Lakers. I didn't particularly care for it because I hate the Lakers, but it was a well-received show for the most part, and I saw a little bit of it, and it seemed pretty good. And it's like, okay, same thing, but do the 90s Cowboys, because that place was crazy, and they still won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. There's, I'm sure, a lot of behind the scenes stories that would be very interesting there. But ultimately, my other idea I went with, inspired by one of my favorite 30 for 30 documentaries that they made about this. I think it could be pretty well made into a good movie. It's about the 1983 NFL draft, which had number 1 pick was John Elway. And then the last quarterback taken in the first round was Dan Marino. Jim Kelly was also in that draft. Eric Dickerson was also in that draft. A lot of notable names, but it was just a very, it wasn't a standard draft where it's like, oh, the best player went and we move on. Like, the Colts had the first pick. John Elway was already drafted by the Yankees in baseball and said, if the Colts pick me, I will not be playing for them. I will play baseball. They picked him anyways. There was all this drama about like trades and everything. John Elway and Dan Marino had the same agent, which it was like his only 2 clients, and it was 2 quarterbacks from that draft who ended up, being 2 all-time great quarterbacks. I just think it could be a really intriguing story, especially kind of the Colts point of view on it. So when I went with casting, first of all, the players, I think, should all be people we do not know, and they're people that look and can act like the players. I think that always works best. Whenever you stunt cast an athlete, it's just hard to to see them as that, and especially when they don't, like, if they're not an athlete themselves and they can't really replicate the movement that a real athlete can do, it just takes you out of the movie, or the show or whatever. So
even at the time, Mark Wahlberg, Vince Papale, even at the time, that was a little too far for me.
Yeah. So like, it's just, that nothing takes me out of a movie or show quicker than like, that guy's not a football player. That guy's not a, whatever player. So like, just be careful with those ones, because I honestly don't think they need to be like the main characters of this story anyway. I think the main players will be Colts owner Robert Irsay, which I chose John Carroll Lynch, who's kind of a noteworthy character actor, to play him. You probably recognize him if you saw his picture, if you don't know him by name. And then the Colts GM, Ernie Accorsi was his name. I think you get Steve Carell in there, a little bit of prosthetics. Steve Carell has, we love him from The Office and so many funny roles, but in his recent, career, he's taken on a more dramatic turn, and I think he could pull it off. And then
Gru, for one.
Yeah. He'll do his Gru voice. And then the last character I cast would be Marvin Demoff, who was John Elway and Dan Marino's agent. And I think Bob Odenkirk would be a great choice,
Oh, yeah.
I think it would need to be a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, but, gives care and tells the story. And I think that's my pitch. If anyone in Hollywood is watching this, I'll my DMs are open. You can let me know.
It's a draft centric movie. So do you think Draft Day falls in one of those that took themselves too serious?
Well, Draft Day to me is kind of like, it's not a bad movie. I've seen it maybe once or twice, but I went into it like the first time I saw it, assuming it was based on a true story, and it absolutely is not. It's a fictional draft.
Yeah, no.
And it's so like, in that sense, I was like, well, this is silly. Like, I don't care. So drafting is, there's a little bit of that, like, it's like, oh, here's the moment where everything works out perfectly. And it's like, these are stupid people. Like, if this was real sports, these are stupid people. So yes, maybe. This I would hope would be less of a vibe of a sports movie and more of a vibe of a movie that happens to be about sports.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I like your idea about not known actors for the athletes. A movie I love that did that very well, Miracle. Except for Jim Craig. Jim Craig was a known actor at the time. Sort of, he was on Friends before Miracle,
but he's a dead ringer. If you look at pictures,
yes,
it looks just
absolutely.
Like it.
100%. So a movie I liked did that very well. Miracle did that. And famously, director said it would be easier to teach hockey players how to act than actors to play hockey, which he was right about that. And so,
agree.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right. So there it is. The 1983 draft gets the movie treatment from Drew. Here's, we'll give him $5 million. Let's make the project happen. It's a low budget, but let's make it happen. All right. So Matt, give us your pitch for a football movie that is from your wonderful, wonderful brain.
Yeah, Drew. What a great idea. It makes me feel ashamed of half of the things I've written down.
Well, when I was reading yours, because you shared them to both of us, I was reading yours, and I was like, oh, so like Matt thought this was a joke.
We have to read a couple of them.
For context, I'll kind of blitz through these. I actually did have, you talked about Draft Day. I had Draft Day 2, the sequel, talking about, Shedeur Sanders sliding in the draft. Of course, Shedeur Sanders would be played by Terry Crews.
It would be hilarious. Okay, first of all, I'm going to go one at a time here. It's good points. It would be hilarious if they made a Draft Day 2 and made it based on a true story. Like,
correct.
Draft Day 1 was absolutely not.
Not.
And then
also,
it'd be hilarious if, like, whatever 55-year-old Terry Crews played 20-year-old Shedeur Sanders, like that.
Dude, Dwayne The Rock Johnson's doing it in an upcoming movie. He's playing like a teenage wrestler or something. Dude is old. Like, they can make it happen.
Some teenager. Saw the trailer.
Anyway, also ironic. I'm realizing about the title of that is it's draft, day 2 because it's like day 2. He went on day 3, so it's not even accurate to the story. So that
They
was
could
one of
they
the
could make
ideas.
they could make draft comma day two about the same draft and it just be day two of that draft and like the Kevin Costner
Yeah,
characters like in
there
and out of the
actually is no
office.
there's no end. It leaves on the cliffhanger of like, is Shador going to get drafted? We don't
Not
know.
really. Okay.
So I threw that idea out there. I talked about the whole story surrounding Michael Sam. He would be played by Terry Crews. Um, I had a documentary series talking about the lifetime achievements of Texas high school coaching legend Eric Taylor, Coach Taylor. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I think it would be mostly just watching the show.
I was gonna say that's very funny. Like, what we need more like a sports media of is a show that already had 5 seasons that we can watch.
No, it's like Lightyear. It's like how Lightyear was the movie that Andy watched before he bought Buzz. This documentary is a documentary that Tim Riggins makes about Eric Taylor, and in the show, they're watching the movie. He screams it for everybody. They all get back together.
I think it's going to be like
I think that
Landry
idea
or something.
plays.
I don't think it could be Tim Riggins. It doesn't feel right for his character.
Cerebral turn.
But hey, I think that one could be fun. I've got one that kind of would play a little bit like the quarterback show that came out following the rivalry of Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. I've got Joe Burrow being played by Timothée Chalamet. Got Patrick being played by Eric Andre. I think he can kind of pull off the character. I think Josh Allen playing himself between Timothée Chalamet and Eric Andre is a thing of beauty. I've got in here a Rudy remake that would star Caleb Heron, Shane Gillis, and Big Cat from Barstool. I think that every single character could be played by any three of those guys. It could be like a Tyler Perry movie where those three actually play all the roles.
I love Rudy. I'll say it.
It's a feel good, man. It's a feel good.
All right. So give us your real one.
Here's the real one. I was honestly split between two. The one that I think would be more entertaining, I still believe in the idea of a 30 for 30 of the 2008 Florida Gators. I think a movie about that team would just be insane. The number out there is there's 121 players that played on the 2008 Florida Gators team. 41 of them have been arrested. It's over a third of the team. And I mean, we're talking about some of the greatest names and personalities in like sports. We had Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Percy Harvin, Joe Hayden, Janoris Jenkins, the Pouncey twins, Carlos Dunlap, Brandon Spikes, Will Hill, Marcus Gilbert, Aaron Hernandez. We had that white receiver who used the N-word a bunch. Like there was so many players on that team, just pure entertainment. But if we wanted to go like really real, one that I could see happening and I think would be really cool, I would love to shine light on like the career and life of Bo Jackson. I mean, just a 2-sport star, baseball and football, just like the show, and was awesome at both. Was genuinely awesome at both. I went, I didn't go with the whole non-recognizable names because I don't know very many non-recognizable names. But in my, movie casting, I have Bo being played by John David Washington, Pat Ty, the Auburn coach, being Bryan Cranston, Al Davis being Jeff Bridges, and then the Nike exec who kind of coined the Bo nose, made him famous, kind of, blew him up, being Don Cheadle. I think that'd be a really fun casting. Like, I just liked the look when I saw the faces together. I was like, this could be a fun movie.
I'd like to see Jeff Bridges do an Al Davis. I think that could be interesting. I think it's Christian Bale in the Madden one, which is also he's one of the great actors in terms of transforming for roles.
Gotta be good.
So I
fun
think
fact.
Great, but...
Fun fact. Me and Drew and Dallas, we lived in a house owned by Christian Bale's stunt double.
Christian Slater's stunt double.
Slater.
Sure.
Maybe he did some Christian Bale work. I don't know.
You never know. You never know. He was in Pirates of the Caribbean. That's pretty close. All right, so there's the Bo Jackson
Same
biopic.
thing.
Yeah, that's pretty close. Batman.
No,
Yeah,
I
that's pretty
think
close to
I think
that.
if there was ever an athlete to get a biopic, Bo Jackson's got to be near top of the list.
I
Yeah.
feel like it would just be a cool story to go and like see.
Yeah, I would be interested in going to watch. Absolutely, I would. You know, that's somebody and you could do like the video game. You know, what was that called? Tecmo Bowl that he was
Yeah.
crazy in, right? You could tackle him. You could talk about that, and because that was a big cultural thing. But yeah, great. So there you go. There's the pitches. I think, yeah, for the record, I would make a Pete Carroll movie, and it would star Greg Kinnear.
Dude, one of the ideas I had, I didn't end up writing it down, was a Pete Carroll, like the whole like, you know, scandal. Like that would be a really fun kind of documentary.
Yeah, it would be mostly about USC, and then you know, leading up to going to the Seahawks. It might be a little bit before that, maybe his last NFL job with the Patriots. But because Greg Kinnear, you can play him at USC age, and then you can age him up a little if you need to. And then you know, I just think I like Greg Kinnear. He's played a coach before. I mentioned that movie, Invincible. So
He was
I like
in mind if he was younger to play Troy Aikman also because he looks
yeah,
he could do a
That's a
Troy Aikman, but I mean,
especially
they're close to
in-
the same age.
yeah, absolutely. He could play, just, you know, play him now. Have somebody play Troy Aikman now. I want to know what his life is like right now. All right, so there's our pitch. You know, our pitches for our movies. Yeah, I do. I'm interested to see how does his face get that red?
A Troy
What did he do
Aikman
during the
movie,
day?
but it's about Troy Aikman's daily life as like a, whatever 62-year-old.
He broadcasts one game a week. His face is red as a tomato
Everyone
hour
assumes they're making a Troy Aikman movie about him as a
How does this
player.
happen?
That'd be so fun.
I want to know. What I want to know is how those negotiations with Fox went so sour. You know, how did they end up in ESPN together? That's what I want to know. All right, so let's end here with our segment that we end with every week, Dingers and Stingers. We're going to hit one good thing, one bad thing from the week of sports. And let's start with Matt's Dinger, if you would, please.
Yeah, my dinger, confirmed, you know, we've got him signed. The Rams signed 2 players who I absolutely thought should have been drafted in the middle rounds of the draft. We've got Sean Dolak out of Buffalo and Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina. These 2 dudes are studs. I don't know how they fell to being undrafted free agents, but I'm glad they did because we got them. These are 2 of my favorite players in the draft just from having watched Willie Lampkin at the Senior Bowl. And then Sean Dolak led the, you know, all of college football in like every category. He had like almost 200 tackles. He had the most interception return yards. He led the nation for linebacker interceptions, had a ton of fumbles, 6 sacks. I mean, the dude was an animal. So I'm super pumped, man. This Rams like offseason just kind of keeps getting better, and they've been making me happy.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Drew, let's hear your dinger for the week, please.
Well, as we record, Ketel Marte hit his first home run of the year. So I'm back to even. Oh, no, wait. No, I'm -7. Never mind. What am I saying? Anyway, but that's not my dinger. My dinger is it's some personal dinger for me. I'm going to go to a couple of ballparks this summer. I have been to both before, so it's not checking off new ones, but they're 2 of my favorite. They're far away. I'm getting to go to Wrigley Field in Chicago, see the Cubs play, and I'm going to go to Target Field in Minnesota to see the Twins play. I've got a wedding in Minnesota, going to tack on some Chicago time on the same trip. That's coming up in like just a little over a month, so really excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah, we'll definitely need some tales from the ballpark after that.
Yes, sir.
After that trip. All right, let's end with the Stingers. Let's go with Matt.
Yeah, speaking of Ketel Marte hitting home runs, my stinger for this week is that my home run draft team is in shambles. Plain and simple. I'm not feeling great. every time I hear news about any of my players, it's that they've either hit home runs from a position I did not draft them in, or they are hurt, or they no longer desire to play baseball. Like,
Yeah.
I'm losing my
You
mind
chose
here. I
Rendon?
mean, well, that's who my replacement for Trout was going to be. Uh, and, and he doesn't even play the outfield. Yeah, my saving grace is my pitching staff. Like, thank goodness I invested early in pitching, because at this point, it's miserable, man. Every time I watch one of my players hit a home run, and it's like, oh, Christian Campbell finally got one. He was playing outfield today. Like, just every time. And it happened like 3 or 4 times with Trout, with Judge. Like, yeah, it hurts, man. It hurts. I take this stuff serious.
Yeah, like we said earlier, the good news is there's a lot of season left, so we'll see if we can turn things around over on that home run draft team. All right, let's end with Drew's stinger for the week.
Yeah, my stinger is going to be the Tristan Casas injury, and not about the team element of it, but about the personal element of it for him. He missed most of last year with an injury to his ribs. This one, it ruptured patella tendon. He's going to miss the whole season. Red Sox already kind of tried to shop him this past year. He's a big dude. It's not going to be an easy road to recovery. We don't know what his career is going to be at this point, and that makes me sad because I was really high on him. Obviously, I hope he comes back. He could have a lot more left in the tank, and this could be silly what I'm saying, but it's just very murky right now. You just don't know. And he turned down, we don't know exactly how much money, but some contract extension offers before last season from the Red Sox. He kind of bet on himself to be one of the premier hitters in baseball and cash out bigger. Ultimately, we'll see. Maybe he wished he would have taken some guaranteed money. But I just feel terrible for him because I really like him as a guy and as a player. And the future is just so murky right now. And I kind of get the feeling he's played his last game as a Red Sox. And we'll see what's next for him. Because I think they didn't seem like they wanted him to be a big part of the future. And I'm not sure exactly why that was, but I can't imagine their feelings have gone up since then with how terrible the start of his season was and then getting hurt. So best of luck to him in his recovery, and I hope he still has a great career in front of him, but, we just don't know right now.
Yeah, it's really tough for a guy like that to happen at this specific moment as well, and just the weird way it happened too. You hate to see a guy get punished for hustle, kind of a thing. Yeah. Like, I really hate to see that. So that's always tough when that happens. But okay, so that's our show for this week. We had a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. If you watched this one, and we appreciate it. If you haven't already, subscribe to us right here on YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram, and we can have some fun over there as well. And then look, if you have an idea for a sports movie or a football movie or just in general, drop it below in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And so that'll do it for this week. But until next week, take care, and we will see you next time.
Buddy.